Hey, what's up? So, rent for me for this month is gonna be a little late. Why? Oh, it's because I invested in Hyliion. Look, I was a businessman doing business, okay? What do you mean, why would I invest in a stock that always goes down? I like the stock. Okay, well, glad to hear we're on the same page. By the way, do you have any food? Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back. So I've been getting a lot of comments from the community asking me to give an update on Hyliion stock, which went from one of my best performing stocks in my portfolio to the worst performing stock that I still have. So full disclosure, I still have my shares, and here is the proof. And the price will probably be different by the time you see it, but I still have my shares, you can bet. So I didn't sell when the stock was at like $9, so I'm not gonna care if it goes to like $15 or if it goes to $6. At this point, it doesn't really matter. And that beginning like skit was a joke, so don't worry. I don't need the money desperately or anything, so I'll just continue to bag hold. So if you want to talk about something other than the price, though, this is the video for you. So let's talk about what the company is actually doing. So I know the stock performance has been disappointing for you guys, and if you guys want to talk about the fundamentals of the company instead, there's actually a lot of exciting stuff that's happening within the company, in my opinion. Arguably, the company is doing a lot better now than it was when the stock price was at like $50. So again, the stock price doesn't accurately reflect the performance of the company all the time. So this is like one of the biggest like beginner mistakes that beginners don't understand, is that like the stock price doesn't necessarily always like reflect the company completely, right? So the company could be doing a lot better when the stock price was lower, right? So a high stock price doesn't necessarily always equate to better performance. It just means that maybe the stock is being manipulated, or maybe the stock is being hyped, or like whatever, right? Anyways, the stock price can do whatever it wants, but if you want to talk about the fundamentals of the company, let's do that right now. So I saw this interview with Jmac Investing and Thomas Healy, the CEO of Hyliion. And if you guys don't know Jmac, he's one of the biggest YouTubers on the topic of SPAC investing here. And yeah, he's known as a SPAC man. And let me just share some of my thoughts on what was talked about in the video. So first and foremost, Healy talked about the Hyliion Development Council, which includes all these members. And as you can see, these are all big names in the transportation logistics industry. So I'm sure you've seen some of their logos on the side of semi-trucks when you're driving on the highway. So these are big names, okay? So they're not just like random no-name companies that you've never heard of. So the purpose of this council is to bring together these like trucking logistics companies that work directly with, transporting stuff, and Hyliion's going to work directly with them to develop the Hypertruck ERX, which is their upcoming product, which is the natural gas carbon net negative product that's going to be the real moneymaker for Hyliion once it comes out. And the reason why this is so important is because, as the CEO of Hyliion, Thomas Healy, said, right now that like every logistics companies have their own list of demands that they want to get out of their trucks, right? So whatever it might be, like certain mileage requirements, certain emissions requirements, whatever. So the worst thing that could happen is that if you build a truck and then they come back to you saying that it's missing XYZ feature, so we can't take it. And it doesn't work for us, well, that would be a disaster, right? So what Hyliion is trying to do is to make sure that that doesn't happen. And what they're trying to do is make sure that the Hypertruck ERX is going to be ready to go from day one, because all these companies, they're actually going to be directly involved in developing these trucks. So it's going to have everything that they want, and as well, they're going to be already familiar with it once they take delivery of their vehicle. So this is really smart, and I really love this idea. So, just to get more people familiarized with their products. So a couple interesting other points that are brought up in the interview. Healy noted that the Hypertruck ERX is fuel agnostic. So if you don't know what that means, basically you can use whatever fuel you want to power it, whether it be natural gas or hydrogen, once that becomes a practical solution, if it becomes a practical solution. So I've talked a lot of flack about Nikola, and I've received a lot of flack in the past for bashing Nikola, who is trying to use hydrogen to power their semi-trucks. And I bash Nikola mainly because, well, they lied. and made false claims about their products. But also, I've never really liked the idea of using hydrogen as a fuel source because it's just far too expensive. So I get it. We're all trying to be environmentally friendly here, and like we are trying to help the environment. But logistics companies, they have to pay 2 or 3 times as much for like hydrogen as diesel. They're probably not going to do it. I just think that a lot of companies would not be on board with that, right? Like imagine like pitching that idea to like a boardroom full of like logistics companies board directives who are like one of the most old school industry people who've been using diesel as their fuel source, and you're like, oh well, use hydrogen because it's cool and it's like environmentally friendly and it's going to be twice as expensive, right? So I don't think that's going to work right now, at least, unless we find some way to synthesize hydrogen as a fuel source in like a very cheap way. And also there's also the problem of infrastructure, right? There's no hydrogen stations anywhere, so how are you going to refuel? And if you're going to build out that hydrogen infrastructure, well, that's going to cost a lot of money. So in the interview, Hyliion also stated that natural gas is going to come in at half the cost of diesel versus something like hydrogen fuel is going to come in at like 2-3 times the cost, right? So you got that dichotomy going there. And also there's also like almost 1,000 stations across North America. I think it was like 700 or 800 stations already that are specifically designed for commercial vehicles, for like these Class A semi-trucks for natural gas across North America. So you already have an infrastructure versus with hydrogen. As I said, you're going to have to build that infrastructure, right? So with regards to battery electric trucks, though, one particular moment that Hyliion said that I think was particularly notable, that was somewhat of a mic drop moment, was that if you think about it, these logistics companies, they're in the business of moving goods, not transporting the battery that comes with the truck. So if a quarter of the loading zone is taken up by the battery, well, then the truck has less range compared to a diesel truck, because that's just the way that batteries work because they're heavy, right? And then also you're going to get less space compared to a natural gas or diesel truck, compared to something like a Hypertruck ERX, for example. So, just how viable is that solution compared to something like what Hyliion is offering, right? So I don't work in the logistics industry and I don't know any more details to fully answer this question. But if you're an expert on this field, be sure to let me know down in the comments. And I mean, I could go on and talking about like all the other like parts of the interview, but I don't want this whole video to just be a summary of the interview. I highly encourage you to just watch the interview yourself, and I'll link to it somewhere, probably down below or somewhere up here. So let me just share some of my thoughts though. And what I think is that there aren't any new concerns with Hyliion as far as I can see. So if you're concerned about Hyliion, then it's probably like based on knowledge that you already could have had back when the stock was like $50. So if you're looking for negative things to say about Hyliion, like for example, what if competition heats up? Or what if their products just don't catch on? Well, then I say this about like in every video about Hyliion, which is nothing new, right? Like you could have had those concerns way back in the day. So there's nothing new when it comes to concerns or downside. What is new though is all the updates that we've been getting, like the new battery module thing that I talked about in the last video about Hyliion that they showed off last time. So you gotta stop and think about Hyliion and its relationship to the stock price, because at least until the Hypertruck ERX is rolled out. So what is concerning would be if Hyliion rolled out the ERX and then the companies go, I don't like it, it sucks, I'm gonna stick with diesel. Then that would probably make me change my mind about Hyliion and probably make me like cut my losses on the stock. But until the ERX comes out, you're just gonna have to ride the ups and downs, honestly. And if you want to really invest and not trade, then you're just gonna have to ride it. If you want to trade, then that's like a different story, right? So if you're a day trader, then this is probably the wrong video for you to be watching, to be honest. But if you're actually in it for the long term, if you actually want to invest in it, then it's an occupational hazard, right? You just got to stick with it. That's just my 2 cents though. Let me know if you disagree or agree. Let me know down in the comments and I'll end the video here. So be sure to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video and consider subscribing if you like this series. Be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, links down below in the description as always. And with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.